Okay, there we go.
Okay. Yeah, because we need to see Terry's. Yeah.
Yes, I have a screen that I have a couple screens I'd like to share with everybody today.
Cool.
Ah.
All the screens.
Got big screens, got portable screens, lots of screens. Hi, Joanne. How are you? It's good to see you.
I'm doing fine. Good to see you.
Good.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Yes, absolutely. I miss your face.
I miss seeing
you. See you much.
Thanks, Joanne.
Yeah, we never did an official happy birthday, Chris.
Yeah.
That's right.
Happy birthday, Chris.
Oh, happy birthday, Chris.
We missed Taylor's too.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we did miss Taylor.
Taylor's happen?
Is Taylor there yet?
She's not on yet, but yeah, her birthday was, I think, earlier, like the 2nd or something. I can't remember what day it was.
Yeah, she said she's on.
She said yes. Happy birthday, Taylor.
Happy birthday, Taylor.
Today is yours, Chris. Happy birthday, Taylor.
No, it was a couple of days ago.
No, it was the 10th.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's not important. I'm just not a 20-something anymore.
For those of you just joining, welcome. Looks like we have a lot of new faces, at least new to the Lunch and Learn, but very good friends like Ruth and Travis. And but these Lunch and Learns, most of the folks that are on the Lunch and Learns are part of our expedition family, our Dig Montpelier family. And so these are pretty casual. We have a lot of discussion and back and forth in them. It's not usual the closed mic kind of affairs, unless someone's dog is barking, and then we will mute that line. So, but otherwise, feel free to chip in with a conversation when something comes to your head. So, and it looks like we got some staff here, former staff and present staff as well. It's wonderful. So good to see you.
This is great. This is really the last one that Matt did was the first one that we've been doing these all summer. Well, in fall. I guess it's winter now. It's all one big season, one big month, one big day. But we've been kind of only sharing them with the expeditioners, and this is the first couple of ones that we've opened up to the general public. So it's exciting to see new faces here, and hopefully you all get kind of a feel for what volunteering with and working with and being a part of our department through our public engagement is like through some of these talks. And for the archaeologists who are here, hopefully you'll learn a few things, see what we're doing about how we're been doing digital paperwork and stuff like that as well. So, but we've really enjoyed these all year and want to keep doing them. So as long as you all keep showing up, we'll keep showing up. So
well, cool. Well, Terry, we're at 12 o'clock, and I've set this so people can just come in. They don't need to be let into the room.
Great.
But thanks everyone for registering for this Zoom webinar. If anyone needs to leave early, don't despair. We're recording this, and we'll send a link out to everyone. And then also, if Terry has any updates that he wants to send you, he can send those as well. I'll send Terry the full list of folks that are both on here and also registered. And I know several of you are on here were on the last one in December that Terry mentioned, where we talked about the big project Relabel, which is our crowdsourcing for relabeling a lot of our legacy data. At the end of this, I'm going to give information about the webinar we're doing tonight for those interested in taking part in that. If you haven't registered for that yet, I will put, while Terry's talking, I'll put the link, the Google form link in the chat to register for the crowdsourcing project we've got going on. So if you want to see some old excavation data, unit forms, photographs, and the system we use to relabel them online, that'd be great. And I'll talk more about that at the end. So, but Terry, thanks for putting something together on the digital paperwork. So
yeah, no, it's great. I'm glad you forced me to do it. Because I've actually gotten a lot of work done in preparation for it that I'm not sure if I would have gotten done this quickly. This is really kind of a sequel presentation for those of you who joined us last summer when I talked about public archaeology and paperless archaeology that we were starting off. This is really kind of the companion piece. So last time we really talked about the fact that we were going to be doing paperless archaeology, that we had a plan, we identified some problems that we wanted to fix, and that we were going to be implementing we've been doing public archaeology, a paperless archaeology, collecting our data digitally throughout the summer. This time I kind of wanted to share with you how it's worked out. What have the things that we thought were going to come true going to actually come true? For those of you who weren't able to see the talk this summer, one of the things we addressed were a number of the challenges and the things that paper recording, sort of the traditional method of recording field excavation data, presented us. And really that kind of boils down to three general areas where we felt hindered. But real quick, paper is 100% flammable, right? That's kind of an easy one, but it's pretty easy to lose a piece of paper. It's also kind of hard to organize for analysis. You can only put that sheet of paper in one place. You can only organize it one way. So that's a frustrating thing from an analytical perspective. We have tons of it. There's like an infinite amount of paper that we have to store, and we have to find a place to keep in a physical space. So we are in our department running out of bookshelves, honestly, to put binders on full of paperwork. Not even all of the data that we do, there's the digitizing process. We still want it to be digital, to be in a database, or maps to be usable on the for publications and for things like that. So we still have to digitize all of it. It has to become digital. So that means we have to do twice the work. We draw all of our maps at least twice. We draw them in the field, and then we scan them, and then we trace them. So we've drawn them twice. So that's doing work twice that we only have to do once, that we would like to only do once, right? Same for data entering any information that we want data entered off of those forms. We write it down by hand, and then we hope that we'll be able to actually read what we wrote down, and then put that into a database. And that's if we even decide that we're going to do that at all. So there's a lot of information that is on our strata cards and forms, our feature forms, that never actually make it into a database. We just use that sheet of paper as the primary piece of evidence, right? As our document, and then do our analysis based off of that, and something else goes into the database. So in fact, technically in our database, there is no data, there is no table for the strat sheets. Those stratum are technically don't have their own digital home. So these are some of the challenges, some of the things that we were kind of thinking we might be able to get rid of. Of course, digital paperwork from a startup perspective presented us with a good deal of a lot of challenges too. It costs a lot of money. You need things to collect information digitally, right? You need some technological expertise. You need to have an idea as to how you want to set that thing up. You need some form of connectivity, or at least that's right. Some way of using, whether it's Wi-Fi or a data plan or something like that. It certainly helps make the process much smoother. You need to take the time to build the workflow. You need time to test it to make sure it works. You don't want to just run out there and decide you're going to do something digitally only to discover that it doesn't work, and not record things on paper as well, right? We still have a responsibility as archaeologists to collect that information, and you need time. You need the resource of time to put and build all of that together. Somehow we magically figured out how to do all of these things, whether it's through generous funding from some donors, a number of us taking a lot of GIS courses in our free time, staff that is willing to, in 2019, run simultaneously a digital paperwork collection and paperwork excavation, so that we had the same, so we could figure out if it was going to work without compromising the data that we were collecting. And Matt was generous to give us the time, knowing or hoping at least that it was going to pay off in the long run with time made up. So did it work? Did this lonely mass, socially distant digital archaeologist get to live out his dream of a paperless excavation and not have to apologize to his boss afterwards? So far, Matt and I seem to still be friends. He asked me to give a paper on it, so I'm assuming that it at least hasn't been a complete and total failure. But I do think that all things considered, this has worked out really quite well. So, all right.
Terry asked the other day if he had tenure, and I said yes. If the GIS and the digital paperwork alone, it would be a tenure.
Well, thanks to Travis and the folks at St. Mary's, right? We just had the publication coming out soon, so that'll help. Right. All right. So, what did we use? What are the actual physical tools, right? Because we needed hardware. Well, I've got a stack of iPad Pros literally sitting in my dining room, which is where I'm beaming into live from, and the staff all have iPads that we're using. We've also are using the pencil, the number 2 Apple Pencil 2 is what it's called, not a number 2 pencil. That's but the second generation of the Apple Pencil. These are really really great tools, and really the big barrier that I always found for doing a lot of digital data collection in the field was the stylus. All the styluses I just hated. I always felt like I was writing with a crayon, and this is the first thing where I felt like where I was actually using a pencil. We have committed whole hog to ArcGIS, the Esri suite of geographic information system software, and because it is as close to plug and play as you can get for ArcGIS anyway, and it lets us do things that we really want to do. It lets us, they have a cloud-based system, ArcGIS Online. They have applications for digital field collection of data, ArcGIS Collector, which is now being, they're actually coming out with a new one called ArcGIS Field Maps, which is a mashup of a bunch of their mobile options. And also, let's see what else. They also have all these tools that I'm going to talk a little bit about later for presenting that data, making that data public and accessible through story maps, web apps, and a new tool called Experience Builder that I'm going to show you a little bit of. The other app that we are using is a drawing app called Graphic, which is a really wonderful tool that is currently just recently purchased in the last couple of years by Autodesk. And this application has been really wonderful because it lets us export scaled shape files, which means we are able to really do measured drawings in the same way that we would do it with paper. It's almost exactly the same, and get those exported, and then also make them so that we can easily bring them into GIS, so that we can get our feature drawings and things like that into the web. We also got this fun, you can see the picture there, this fun little contraption that Chris set up diligently every day to allow us to have Wi-Fi out at the site. We are fortunate in that we are located at a museum, at an institution, and our archaeology site happens to have line of sight to our visitor center. So we were able to set up a system where we're able to beam Wi-Fi directly to our site. As a backup, we did run this season with data plans on the few iPads that we had, since we have had a very small crew this year because of COVID. We only had 4 iPads out there at one time. So that was also a backup option. We also learned and did test a little bit that ArcGIS Collector allows for non-connected data collection as well, and we tested that a little bit at the very beginning, and it actually worked pretty well. So so there are ways to do this without connectivity. There, to the iPad. So what does this actually look like on the iPad? I'm going to show you all. We're going to change the thing that I'm sharing. just to alleviate any fears, this is not a photo of a broken iPad screen. Although that's what I thought when I saw it for the first time. I gave Matt the heart attack that this picture gave me when it got posted on Instagram by my team. That is a reflection of the umbrella that the iPad is sitting under. So let's go to my iPad here. Let's see if this works. Yay! All right, we're in. So this is what you're seeing here is the screen of my iPad. We're in collector right now, and what you're seeing here is the layer that is our units, our excavation units that we excavated in 2019 and 2020. And it's layer based. And what we did is we took all of our paperwork and we broke it up into a number of different layers that are either polygons, polylines, or points, depending on the kind of data that we were collecting. So this is simply, what you see here is simply the units themselves that we checked out, the 5 by 5 foot unit. And if I click on one of these, right, it'll bring up the information that we entered, you know, how the dimensions of the unit when we opened it, where it's located, what project it is, what the coordinates are, who excavated it, so on and so forth. We can also attach media to this, and for what we decided is that for these units, we would attach the profile photos. So all the profile photographs are attached for each unit in that area. So that's really really nice to be able to see this. One of the other things we were able to add is a thing we call unit status. So these are all symbolized based on their status. Where are they? Have they been excavated? Are they unexcavated? Do they have a feature in them? Do they have stratigraphy we still have to dig? So on and so forth, which is I'll talk a little bit more about. It's one of the huge benefits from a site management perspective. We also have a form that is the actual strata forms. And so these are a different form, that we add when we open a new layer. And again, all the information you would typically enter, you know, is it stratigraphic or arbitrary? Where does it sit in the Harris matrix? The soil colors, texture, inclusions, all of this stuff. For those of you who've worked with us and done paper field work, it's very, very similar. A lot of the same stuff. Artifact counts that we do in the field. This is super great because I can make distribution maps almost immediately with this information, even though it's just the counts from the field that we do. The sample numbers, and again, pictures. So we can attach the photo. So there's the opening photo of MT2654.A. There's our opening photograph. So this is all together. Typically, in order for me to look at those pictures, I've got to have the sheet of paper, and then I have to look up what the photo number is, and I have to go into the computer, pull up that, assuming that it's been downloaded onto the computer. There's a whole bunch of steps to get to that information. I can do it real quickly here. One of the things we took out of our strata paperwork and inputted into its own layer is our elevation information. So we have all the opening and closing elevation points that our staff take measurements of in the corner of each excavation unit, and those now have their own points. So you can see here the 4 different elevations for 2664 different layers, the elevation points that we have at those, the opening and closing, because those are better taken as points, right? That's how those are actually become useful data, useful information for us. Features also were recorded this way. So, and as you can see here, F155 is one of the features that we looked at. This is the form that we would fill out for a feature. We didn't end up excavating any of our features this field season, so these are, we don't have a lot of information in here yet because we haven't excavated them, but they are documented. And again, pictures attached to these so that you can see the picture and action photo there and the map. as well of that feature that's drawn in the field. So so really good data and information that we get from this. When we're in the field,
sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine.
This, and just to point out to everybody, this is all online. I mean, Terry will send a link to everybody with these maps that you can explore yourself. I mean, this is the cool thing about this is if I was on vacation in the summer for 2 weeks, I could be just sitting on vacation at the beach watching unit forms being filled out and photos being taken, which is just absolutely amazing. So it's not the point of doing it online, but it is an advantage. That's all, Terry. It's so cool.
I did supervise some of this project from the beach. But yeah, it was a huge advantage this year, particularly with the crew in the field and me in my dining room, an hour and 15 minutes away. So so it allowed me to manage this project from a distance, which was very safe, right? So the other thing with the features is in the when they find the feature in the field on the actual map, they're just doing a rough sketch of the feature outline, not a detailed drawing. The detailed drawing happens in a different application, which is called Graphic, which I'm going to show you now. Graphic is a really wonderful tool. Like I said, it lets you do measured drawings. The other thing I really love about it is it lets you do layered work. So here is a map this is a tree hole that we excavated as part of the Pine Alley when we first were testing out just this software. I'm able to really easily create one of these drawings and have a number of different layers, even adding a layer that is actually where we're taking the measurements of these different entities. So I can turn off the drawing, but this is just one person, just like when you were doing with paper, somebody taking measurements and calling them out and then mapping them and then going back and drawing the polygon over the feature or over where those measurements are, right? Connecting the dots, just as we've done in archaeology for many decades. But the final product is a map that you could put in a report, right? It's a digital map. This is a report ready map. It has all the details in it that I would need. I can annotate it. I can turn those on and off. I can, it's got the unit grid on there. I can turn that on and off. This is ready. This is ready to go in a report. This is ready to be visible in any way that I need it to. I can export it immediately as a JPEG, and then that's what gets attached right into that into the GIS layer. So so this is ready to go. We also then export a shape file out of here that is very stripped down, doesn't have the annotations on it, only has certain labels on it, and this is what we then pull into ArcGIS Pro, our desktop software, and then geo-rectify it to the unit that we need, which actually has then that little sketch of, I hope this makes sense, y'all, has that little sketch of that feature, which we can then that has all that metadata attached to it, and we can just pull it right up to where that the measured drawing is. So we can basically update the rough sketch to make it a very accurate sketch. And voila, now what you see here on this map is the detailed measured drawing of that feature is what that outline is. That is exactly equivalent to this drawing here. They're exactly the same. So, so this has been the process for us this summer, has been doing a lot of this. So a lot of this, you can already probably start to see that a lot of this stuff is going to be collected in that way. I think I saw a question from Stefan, why don't you just create a grid layer and collector, use it to make the measured drawings? Well, this is a way that we're able to create these JPEGs that I really like being able to have, that are report ready, that I could print out, right, or I could give anywhere. and just gives me a bit more flexibility with those shapefiles and those being able to export JPEGs and stuff like that, if that makes sense.
Stefan, you remember spending all the time in the wintertime digitizing and doing CAD drawings. That we write reports in the winter now, and all this gets done in the field.
Yeah, it's great to see all this coming to fruition. I know people have been working on this kind of workflow for a long time, so it looks like you guys are doing a great job.
All right, thanks, Stefan. That's great.
Terry,
yeah,
could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I don't know if you're going to touch on this later or not, but could you talk a little bit about using these expensive tools in the field and in the sun and in the heat and the dirt?
Yeah, absolutely. So, because I was not planning on talking about that, but I'm happy to. Hold on, I'm like lost in a sea of screens. So we have covered these iPads in protective. These are completely covered in protective gear. So you could, I don't know how high you could drop it, but if it were to fall off, if you were to drop it, it'd be fine. If you were to drop something on it, it would probably be okay. So we put a good amount of resources, like $80 a case for these iPads. So those are pretty well protected. Sun was an issue and heat was a little bit of an issue. So it really did become important for staff to remember that they needed to keep these in the shade, throw them in their bag when they're not using them, just not leave them lying out in direct sun, because they would occasionally overheat and conk out. So that's certainly a thing to keep in mind. Chris honestly could talk, and Taylor and Hannah could probably talk better to how much of an issue it actually was. I will say that one of the nice things about Collector and using these apps is you could use it on any device. So like if worst came to worst, you know, people could pull out their phones and still collect the information and the data if things got dire. Chris, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
There was a bit of a learning curve, especially during the heat of summer, with shade and heat management, especially with the full protective cases the iPads did. They were prone to overheating, but we just carried like a bucket with us that I kept my sweatshirt over or something to help keep it out of direct sunlight, and had zero problems at that point. Or if you have a backpack, keeping it in, something like that seemed to work. But that was really the only issue we had from a technical standpoint, other than Wi-Fi problems.
I wondered about painting them white. They make a plastic paint, and that would help so much. Having them black is just awful. I might experiment with mine.
I will say my biggest fear is losing these pencils. That's my biggest, most ultimate fear. Because I mean, granted, we could just get dentists probably to come metal detect and find them, but we didn't lose any miraculously, but that was my biggest fear.
Luckily they're magnetic, so they would just
stick
to something nearby.
Yep, to something, and they stick right to the iPad also. So that was much. It trust me to do it. Let's see. Let me go back. So we saw tremendous benefit. Really, we've seen it so far in 3 different areas. First, the site management, then report writing, and am I sharing my screen with you all? Is this happening? I didn't do it. Sorry. I really do know how to use technology, I swear.
You know how to use it too well, Terry, because you have like 80 screens you're lost in.
So anyway, 3 different areas that we've really seen benefits: site management, report writing, and public interpretation. We obviously didn't do much public interpretation with humans this summer. So this is the best picture I could find with the horses. The major benefits from site management perspective: fewer mistakes, much more consistency in the way we're collecting our data. We can do things like pull downs, radio buttons, all of that stuff. So, which we tried to use as much as possible with our forms. So that just means that, you know, everybody, you know, like we've got the whole month cell in there, right? So you just do a pull down for your 5YR or your 10YR or whatever, and it's always going to be accurate. as long as you pick the right thing, right? But it means that there's no handwriting issues. There's no like, what did this say? All of those things are wiped away because it's all we're able to do pull downs, and then obviously it's typed text. We can also check for mistakes much easier because the data is immediately in an attribute table. So you can sort very quickly on one field and see that you know, something got entered incorrectly because it stands out. There was an instance with the shovel test pit data where I'd symbolized the data for the depths of the different layers to show different sizes based on the depth. And I had a couple STPs that were huge, right? The diameter of the symbol was enormous. And I looked in and it's because the decimal place was missing, right? It was saying it was 7 feet deep instead of 7/10 of a foot deep, right? And so I was immediately able to catch that because I know for certain we didn't dig any 7-foot deep shovel tests, and check that data and fix it. So having that data in the in digital mode from the get-go allowed us to do a lot better checking and then reduce mistakes from the very beginning. The real-time site maps. This was really really huge for us. I showed you this on the and I talked a little bit about the status identification. But like a thing Matt used to love to ask me to do was to go through every single excavation unit that we'd excavated so far and figure out whether it was excavated or not excavated or somewhere in the middle, right? So I'd spend a whole day trying to make a map that had these up-to-date status symbols on them. I don't have to do that anymore. It just happens. And it is this map, right? That tells you, gives you that information immediately. Even with looking, and so we can make decisions very quickly. I can talk to Matt about what's happening at the site and show him a map, and we can make decisions about this site with real data in real time. Another thing I was often asked to do, this is not just me complaining, Matt, but these problems have been solved, was he would want to know where the high concentrations of artifacts are. So going through and notating on a map where we're having a lot of ceramics and a lot of bone from the counts on the sheets. It would take a long time to make that map. Now I can just do a distribution map with the data that's already inputted, and we can automatically make those decisions. So when we went from our STP survey this summer to choosing what units we were going to excavate, we could do it in a day because I just had to look at the STP data and then plot out new units right on the map using the distributions that were already in the database. Really, really quick and easy way to do that work. So this obviously, that increases the efficiency of everything that we do when it comes to field management, right? We can make better informed decisions with better data faster. And that just means that we're, right, it means that we're going to be making better choices about where we're going to be putting our excavation units, which means we're going to waste less time digging holes that we don't need to dig. And we can, the time it actually takes to make those decisions is time better spent and less time spent. So there's a real, the efficiency quotient is really, really important. And then the last bit is that it's provided us with new ways to engage with the public in real time. We built a dashboard, for example, for our STPs that was accessible to the public. So you could literally watch this happen in real time as the crew is sort of marching across the site. You watch these dots change color, and then you could even go in and watch the heat map change. So, you know, this is a, like if an STP survey is ever going to be exciting to the public, like actually being able to see the data, the results of the data, and see this large blob of brick pop up in real time, that's about as good as it gets, right? And then we're able to use that information and actually give a talk about it, right? So this is one of my favorite Facebook Lives that we did, where Chris where I was here in my dining room. Chris was in the field walking around looking at STPs, and I was manning the dashboard. And so Chris would go over and show an STP that we dug, and then we would look at the data on the actual map and have that back and forth, that interaction. So this is just another way of kind of starting to bring the data into the conversation when we work with you all, right? And talk to you all. Aside from it also giving us a whole lunch and learn, we can talk about how digital stuff is making us be able to talk to you better about stuff. Those meta presentations, right? So this coming field season, we'll have a dashboard similar to this that will be for the field excavation, for the unit excavations. It was something I wanted to get done this year, but it didn't happen in time. So for this upcoming excavation, you'll be able to follow the excavation units in real time, the future excavations in real time. As the staff enters the data, you'll be able to see the data through a dashboard system like this, or perhaps Experience Builder. We'll see how it works out. But lots of ways to, again, make this more visual and a bit more interesting for the public as it's happening. All right, post-excavation benefits. So there's really kind of four major things that happen at the end of a field season. The first is, right, cataloging and processing samples, right, taking care of all the artifacts, the work that Mary and her team does in the archaeology lab. The second is digitizing and organizing all the paperwork, taking all of that field data and getting it ready for us to do analysis on. The third thing is doing that actual analysis, making the distribution maps, doing all of that work. And then the last one is actually writing and compiling the report. This all takes a long time to do. And there are spots in here where there's a good deal of inefficiency that we wanted to start hacking away at with this digital stuff. So the first one is the digitizing and organizing paperwork. This is going paperless means this is already done. I showed you an example of one of the plan maps already. Again, those are maps that we would draw the first time and then scan and then draw again. And that would take a long time, particularly when you're running 9-month field seasons like we are, right? There's a lot of maps that we have to get drawn. This is one of our profile maps. This is drawn in the field and it's ready to go. This is a beautiful map, right? This is ready for a report. And again, this is another plan map that is a great map of 2 unexcavated features. And that's exactly how we drew it in the field, and it's exactly what it looks like, ready to go for a report. So no work that needs to be done on this at all. It's the same thing for our feature write-ups. I'm just, now that they've got little mini keyboards in the screen, just have them enter the feature information right into the data set, and then I can export those out, and we've got our feature write-ups all ready to go at the end of the season. So our appendices can be compiled much faster. So just a whole lot of information that we don't have to redo. It's done, and it's done right the first time. So that obviously helps our site analysis, right? If we can cut out a whole bunch of the digitizing work, we can get to analysis sooner. It also means that the data is already digital, so we can do that analysis that much quicker. A lot of it we're able to do real time in the field. One of the things we have to do is look at what we call site strata. And these are basically trying to connect layers that match through all these different units across the entire site. Because those are all associated with each other, right? The plow zone layer that we found at the overseer's house in one unit is the same as the plow zone in the next unit and in the next unit. Plow zone is great because it's a simple example. But we're able to assign those numbers, that site stratum number in the field in real time. So, and then that makes that analysis just that much easier. And I wanted to show you. And then I can very easily, using GIS, just do a filter that just says, show me all the site stratum that is number 122, which is plow zone. And these are all the units that have that site strata in it, just by doing a quick filter on the map. And I can do this over and over and over again with as many different site strata as I need to. So each one of these, right, shows you, there it is, that's layer 122. These all have plow zone in them. So it just allows us to do a little bit of, keystrokes, things that take a whole lot longer for us to do otherwise. So the site analysis process is really sped up and simplified because the data is already ready to be analyzed. It's already there and ready to go. Sorry, Matt, you interrupt me if there's a question that in the chat that needs my attention. A lot going on here.
Yeah, I've been typing out answers so
awesome.
You can get as much as you need in.
So then that leaves the last bit, which is writing the actual report. Actually, it's the second to last bit, right? If we can digitize this stuff faster, and if we can do the analysis faster, well, that's going to mean that the report is going to get written faster, right? Kind of obviously. It also means that all that staff time that was being allocated to digitizing and organizing and feature writing.
Nope. Sorry, my audio. I'll be back in 1 second.
Am I there? Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay. We can take those very talented archaeologists, and instead of having them redraw the maps that they already drew, we can have them go do cataloging, identifying artifacts, processing samples, working on conservation, right? So things that aren't digital, right? But is work that needs to get done. So we can put those hands and minds towards other tasks that will help make those processes more efficient. Because those are things that, like, you can only catalog nails so fast, right? But the more people you have doing it, the faster you're going to get them done. Okay, so the last piece, and this is really, I think, the main reason one of the main reasons that we adopted GIS but ArcGIS in particular, is sharing our findings, how we are able to take this information and make it accessible to the public. So I wanted to show you a couple different instances of this happening. So the first is there's a thing called story maps. And this is a story map that Matt's been kind of building and working on. This is a really great tool for interpreting and telling stories about data. And for those of you who did Unlocking Montpelier this summer or got a chance to look at any of that work or were generous enough to make a contribution to that project, that was all built in story maps. But this is really just a way to kind of tell a story about information using pictures, text, and maps. So this is an embedded, what you see here is an active embedded GIS map that Matt has made, showing you the different areas in the home farm, but put into this story structure. And for some of them, you can kind of bounce through. So this is a really neat, where he's bouncing through and telling the story visually through maps. And this is a lot of looking at metal detector data and the excavation data from the tobacco barn quarter, but really kind of zipping through the whole South Yard. But it sort of gives you an idea as to how having this data in this digital form lets us really tell stories in ways that we've not been able to do. And all things considered, in a way that you can do a cursory dive on this, right? You can just look at it this way, but you can also get into it if you want to, because these things you can start digging on or start clicking on this stuff and seeing the data from the units and looking at the pictures and stuff like that. So this is a really great way to tell a slightly more controlled narrative or story about whatever you want. You don't even have to put maps in it. It's just kind of a nice visual way to look at things and to tell stories. The other one that is new that ArcGIS released this summer is a tool called Experience Builder. And this is something I've been playing with a lot, and it's got a bit of a steep learning curve on it, but it is basically a way to, it's kind of a mashup of a website and story maps and just has a whole bunch of different ways to visualize data. And so what I've been sort of doing is putting together sort of what I would, basically the final report for the Overseer's site for our excavations this past summer, but in this scenario and using this tool. So it lets you build a website, right? You can embed video in it, but you can also use maps, right? So we all do that map at the beginning of a report where we show you where the study area is, right? It's in Virginia, it's in Orange, it's in, well, I can do that now with, you know, this is a simple little map to make, but I can zoom you in and show you where the study area is with a little bit of text around it. So sort of a different way of talking about these things, the different methods that we're going to be addressing in the paper, a bit about the you know, the people who are working on the excavation and stuff like that, right? So it's sort of a little bit of a project page, but then it also, I put the kind of traditional things that you would see in a excavation report, right? The landscape, and this is a work in progress, so there's a lot that's not done on this. But you know, landscape history. There's a number of other excavations that have happened at this site, so I'll be chronicling that. And then also addressing the research questions that we've had, but to be able to do that in a more visual way, right? So one of the things that I'm covering in this report is how, you know, the 20-meter survey and how we actually found where the Overseer's house is, and also some of the other sites. And this is a bit like what Matt's story map does. And then also starting to look at the evidence for architecture within the building, right? So what's our strategy? Why did we choose different areas to put units? You know, pulling in that shovel test pit information to talk about the brick rubble concentration that we found. Again, a video of me talking about that actual brick rubble concentration. So using different media to get across this information. Looking at these subfloor pits. So this filters down and I can cycle through and show the 3 different subfloor pits that we found with their metadata, and I can edit this so that this is actually plug in. This is information here that was written in the field. So I didn't have to type this when I was doing it. This is what the person who found this feature typed about this feature. And so this is all information that is, you know, when you look at the back end of this, this says like feature number is a description. And then for this, it says discussion, right? And it's pulling that information out of the metadata to create these sentences and paragraphs. And then again, another video, which actually really nicely correlates the way these photos are oriented and the video is oriented with the actual map. And again, you can explore this map if you want to. So, so being able to kind of tell these stories and present the information and the research methodology and results in that way. And then also, and this is a thing that again requires a whole bunch of work, but providing the appendices for this data in a visual way. So, so this is literally a map of every single 10-foot survey grid and 10-foot hit, right? And you can turn one of them off or on. And if you click on one of these, it brings up some of the information here. And same with the hit data. Click on a hit, and it brings up that hit with its pictures. And you can just cycle through these if you want to, you know, or search for a specific one. But we'll be going to also make this for the unit data, for the feature data, for the site strata, all of that. So you'll be able to just have clear access and be able to cruise through the sort of the raw data, if you will, in this appendix also. So I've been really enjoying messing around with Experience Builder. It's been a lot of fun, but I think there's some sort of new ways to kind of address to present some of our findings to our colleagues and to the public as we go through this. That's the gist of what I have. So basically, rousing success, time and money well spent. We did it. But it's been really a lot of fun. If for those folks who are in graduate school with me, they know that I've been talking about wanting to do this for a very, very long time. So I'm real grateful to Matt for giving me the opportunity to implement it, and for the team for hanging with me as we kind of went on this little adventure together. But it's been yeah, I think it's done what we've wanted it to do, which and there's been some additional surprises that we weren't expecting that have also been really great. So that's all I have. I'm open for communications or questions or what have you.
Well, Terry, thanks for this. We'll send an email to everybody because we have your emails with links to some of the story maps that Terry had. But definitely timing on this has been kind of everything. We, about a year ago, 2 years ago, one of our former staff, DJ Barry, entered in all of our baseline data that we had in CAD. He spent about a year doing that. And that really allowed us to hit the ground running once, you know, we made the purchases of the iPads. And all this also coincided with the Esri having a real focus on putting in a lot of commitment to their online platform, because basically it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, that they're making a commitment to have everything they're putting in Arc Pro into Arc Online. And so this means, like, some of the things I've shown you all in the Lunch and Learns before, like the 3D scenes for, you know, the model that Angie put into Arc Pro. Once it's in Arc Pro, you can put it online and it's accessible, which means not only is this great for, you know, for outreach to the public, but it means that for doing this in the field, all this stuff, you know, this is all live data that, you know, in terms of managing the data, it's a lot easier. It's not going from like stuck on an iPad and then we got to bring all the iPads in and download them. It's all being streamed right to the web. The one thing we feared was, you know, what if the internet went down? And, you know, if it went down for like a week, I think we'd all be in trouble anyways. Probably wouldn't be worrying about a job. But we do have the paper forms that if there was an emergency, like if the internet went out at Montpelier, which is more likely, we would go back to paperwork and then probably have to spend a week transcribing.
Well, and Esri does have offline capability. So, and we only did it a little bit with the STPs when we were still transitioning. We had to be out digging, but we didn't quite have everything from a connectivity standpoint set up. And they do have offline capability, and it worked great for the STPs because that's the thing that, you know, one person is working on. And I would love to test it and see how well it. One of the tricks is if you've got 5 iPads out there, right, you kind of want that data to be on everyone's iPad, right? And that obviously is not possible with without them being connected to each other through some sort of network. So, but that possibility does exist. So I think like our worst case scenario is like all of our iPads exploding or something like that. But I think we could still get by for that week. Let's see. So Stephanie asked about, and you all are welcome to just like jump in and ask the question with your, you don't have to type them all into the chat if you don't want to. Stephanie asked about pros and cons. What's been a struggle? Actually, Chris, why don't you you guys have been out in the field. Like, what do you wish? What were some of the big barriers?
I don't think there were honestly a lot of barriers. There was some getting used to sort of flipping between multiple pages. So when you have a whole stack of paperwork for one unit, it's very easy to like copy information from one strat card to the next very easily and just sort of, sorry, I'm getting notifications. That was probably the most annoying thing, is having to flip through a bunch of different feature layers on the iPad and like copy and paste stuff. But we were able to
basically you could only look at one sheet of paper at a time. Whereas with paper, right, you could look at 10 sheets at one time. Yeah.
Yeah, some of it you were able to do, Terry was able to do from the initial project setup and like pre-enter some information that wasn't going to be changing at all. And then we found some good workflows during the process for like entering elevations where you might have like 25 plus points per unit because you have multiple strata and you're having to enter in like for 5 elevations per strata, the unit information, the datum coordinates, the datum elevation, all this stuff so many times. We found that Collector has a pretty convenient way of editing multiple, where you can just pre-make all your points, select them all, and then edit all of that data together. So that there was a lot of just trial and error. There is still some, like we flipping between Airtable, which is another field-based sort of table system that we use for tracking inventories. We duplicate information between that and GIS a little bit, which can get tedious, but it's still less tedious than paperwork overall.
Yeah, and I think this is also, it's, you know, if people are thinking, if the archaeologists in the room are thinking about whether they want to adopt this or not, it's always important to remember that no matter what new technology you bring on to solve a whole bunch of problems, you're going to generate new problems. That's just like kind of the nature of doing these transitions. So, you know, it's you know, kind of picking your poison. For us, building that efficiency into the process and was really key and really important for us. It helps us with our budget. It helps us with getting work done faster. It helps us with getting interpretation to the public faster. And that's really kind of where we wanted to put a lot of our emphasis. So lots of questions in here about backups. Yes, we're backing all this stuff up. Everything goes into Esri's cloud system first, so which is all hosted by AWS. So if you know, if Amazon goes down, we're all screwed. So so this stuff goes that place first, and then we pull it all back down onto our servers and stuff like that to make sure we have backups there as well.
One thing we do, like I put in the text, but to add a little more detail, we do download all this stuff and put it into Access as, you know, CSV data. And so we are very mindful that we do want to have transformability into different software packages. And this is with our workflow anyways. When we have, right now we use Access for our database software, but Mary Furlong-Minkoff is working on grants and with Michigan State University to create an overall catalog management system. And when that happens, we're going to want to have all this data. It'll be transformable from ArcPro into whatever software we need. So having it, you know, it looks pretty in ArcPro on the maps, but all this stuff is reduced down to CSV files or text files for just long-term portability. And all the images are downloaded as well as JPEGs.
person who asked that question in the chat, Chip Brock, is my father. So anyway, you all just got a little glimpse into my childhood. I learned about backups very hard in 6th grade. Let's see, any other questions? Stefan, if any of us knew Python, I'm sure we could. That falls back onto that expertise bit.
I think Stefan's volunteering to help us with Python.
That's what that sounds like. Someone screenshot that.
We might be able to work something out.
Thanks, Stefan.
Yeah.
And for those of y'all that don't know, Stefan is a former staff. Stefan was here 2008 to 2010, and then wrote his dissertation on Montpelier. And you all saw him in one of the lunch and learns. So.
There's a lunch and learn you can go back and see of Stefan and his great work. But yeah, any other questions that you all have? So for those of you who come on an expedition this year or field school or whatever, this is what we'll be using. We'll be putting this information into iPads, and you all will get opportunities to do this work with our team. So it's you know, again, we feel pretty confident that this first season's been a success, and gonna stick with it. So
absolutely. Well, thanks everybody. I'll work with Terry. I'm going to download this recorded video and put it on YouTube, and I'll give it to Terry to put onto the link that has all the lunch and learn videos on it. But so I'll immediately send you all an email with some of the web maps that Terry was bringing in. But then also, if anyone is interested in helping us with the crowdsourcing online data entry, I'll send you I'll put some information on that in the link to the video that we're doing, the webinar we're doing tonight at 7 o'clock p.m. So
that's true.
Well, Terry, thank you so much for doing this. First, thank you so much for doing this meta. Like, thanks for getting us into the paperless age, which is absolutely amazing. But also, thanks for doing this webinar. It looks like it was pretty easy because you've got it took you a year to prep for this, year plus. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. This has been a lot of fun, and thanks everyone for showing up. It was really great to see a lot of your faces and a lot of colleagues and friends and family who I haven't seen in a while. So it's good to see you all. Thanks for listening to me blab about my nerdy hobby. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Terry, very much, and thank you, Matt.
Oh, thank you, Pat. Wonderful seeing everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's great to see you all and have this forum.
It was great. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. Hi, Matt.
Oh.
Hi, Terry.
Thank you.
Hi, Terry's mom.
Bye, bye.
Hi, Mom.
Bye,
Take
Mom.
care.
Say hi to the fam. Okay.
Will do. Oh,
Terry, I'm copying all the comments just in case. So.
Yeah, somebody asked about field school in there. So.
Oh, yeah. Fortunately, Zoom, since we've got this recorded, it records all the metadata. So I'll get this stuff to you. So I'll get you, I'll send an email, and I'll BCC everybody, but I'll send you a separate email with everybody's email so you can send them stuff as well. So, all right.
Awesome.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks
for doing this.
See you later.
Really cool, Terry.
Thanks, Chris. I'll talk to you in 30. Can we do 30 minutes so I can eat some lunch?
Sure.
Cool.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
Letting this
Thanks.
conversation end. Bye, you all.